General Manager Brad Holmes and head coach Dan Campbell have done a phenomenal job developing a culture and helped turn around a franchise that hasn't always found success into one with aspiring hopes for a Super Bowl run. With the draft approaching in less than a month, the Lions can still find a way to bolster their promising roster through the draft. So let's get right into it. With their first round pick, I've got the Detroit Lions selecting Zach Frazier, the center out of West Virginia. The strength of the Lions stems from their line play, and with the departure of Jonah Jackson to the Rams, Brad Holmes filled this hole with the signing of guard Kevin Zeitler from the Ravens. However, at age 34, he's just a stopgap at the position, so the future of the O-line group has to be solidified. At 6'2", 310, what you get in Frazier is an experienced player who is tough beyond measure. A 4-year starter for West Virginia at both center and left guard, he started 46 out of a possible 47 games, including 36 straight at center. He was also a 4-time state champ in wrestling during high school, which translates well for O-line play. In his final game for the Mountaineers, he unfortunately broke his leg, yet managed to recover a few short months later and participate in drills at the NFL Combine, which speaks to his work ethic. To me, he fits the culture that Dan Campbell is currently creating in Detroit perfectly, and can be a stalwart on this nasty O-line for years to come. It's clear Brad Holmes and the front office have been in search for a true X-receiver, as it's the only piece missing from their wide receiver core. They've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's a bona fide star that feasts in the slot, a downfield threat in Jameson Williams, who's gradually coming back to his old self, as well as good depth and returnment options with Antoine Green, Khalif Freeman, and Donovan Peoples-Jones. With that being said, I have the Lions selecting Keon Coleman, a wide receiver from Florida State here in round 2. At 6'3", 213, Coleman's got the prototypical size to be an NFL outside receiver. He's most dangerous when he has the ball in his hands, as his size and speed combination makes it tough for defenders to take him down. This is highlighted on wide receiver screens, and especially during the punt return game, where he was a home run threat every time he had a chance to take it back. He also has ridiculous ball skills, being able to make one-handed catches with ease, such as his contested grab over the middle against Syracuse. However, he isn't a blazer by any means, running a 4.61 in the 40-yard dash, but that simply isn't his style of game. The Lions already have those traits in their current room, so with a bigger body receiver, they should all complement each other well, making Jared Goff's job that much easier. With that being said, let's move on to round 3. As we close out day 2, we address the much maligned secondary for the Lions with cornerback Khyree Jackson out of Oregon. Holmes and their front office have done tons of resources rebuilding cornerback room, including trading for Carlton Davis from the Bucks and signing Amik Robertson from the Raiders. They were also able to re-sign Emmanuel Mosley, but unfortunately had to release Cam Sutton due to off-field issues. With one injury, however, the outlook would be a lot different, which is why Jackson would be a great pick here. Standing at 6'4", 194, Jackson is an imposing outside corner who can be a huge factor in the run support game. He isn't the most explosive athlete, as he doesn't have the top-end speed corners have these days, running a 4.5 40-yard dash. However, the length he possesses more than makes up for that, allowing for him to press up against his receiver and still make up the ground for it. He definitely will improve over time as he gains more playing experience, but he definitely has a ceiling to become a starter and help improve this secondary. So with that, we'll be moving on to day 3 of the draft. In the 5th round, we got the Lions taking tight end A.J. Barner from Michigan. With the 49ers offering a 3-year, $12 million deal to Brock Wright, there's a possibility that the Lions could lose him if they don't match the offer, after placing a restricted rights tender on him. Wright was a key part of the Lions' game plan, logging over 1,000 snaps on both offense and special teams over the past 2 years. And even though James Mitchell has shown flashes, he's been sidelined by injuries for most of his career thus far, meaning a replacement has to be found. Barner spent 3 years at Indiana before transferring to Michigan this past year, where he enjoyed his best season. At 6'6", 251, he excels as a blocking tight end, being able to consistently take on edge defenders and secondary players alike. His strong suit would definitely be in the run game, where he dominates the early stages of blocking, though his pass blocking isn't that far off. He is more limited in the pass catching department, though he is a huge target and is able to sit in zones to give his quarterback a safe place to throw to. However, with Laporta and Mitchell filling that role already, a blocking tight end has to be brought in, which A.J. Barner can do with ease. Moving on to round 6, we get more help in the secondary with safety Malik Mustapha from Wake Forest. With the departure of Tracy Walker and C.J. Gardner-Johnson, that leaves Kirby Joseph, Ifeatu Melifonwu, and practice squatter Brandon Joseph as the only safeties on the roster, which is dangerously thin. Brian Branch can play safety, but his value as a nickelback is simply too great to warrant a move. Built at 5'10", 209, what Mustapha lacks in size is made up with his heat-seeking tackles that make pass catchers question going over the middle. A 2U starter for the Demon Deacons, he's an excellent run defender who can crash down and take on running backs while also having the speed to roll and defend passing lanes. Mustapha finished 3rd on the team with 80 tackles, and was also able to rack up 5 tackle for losses, 2 pass defenses, 1 forced fumble, and an interception, highlighting his versatility all across the field. He can get over-aggressive at times and bite on pump fakes and double moves, though that can definitely be cleaned up. He likely won't be a day 1 starter, but even then, he'll be a huge contributor on special teams and be able to quickly integrate into the culture Dan Campbell and the Lions have created. With our second pick in round 6, we beef up the D-line with defensive end Byrd from USC. The reason why he'll drop down this far isn't because of his production on the field, as he had 6 sacks last year, but rather questions about his athleticism, where he had a 1.49 overall RAS. After spending 4 years at Wyoming, he transferred to USC, where he spent the past 2 seasons and provided a major impact for the Trojans. His on-field performance more than shows his capabilities as a pass rusher, as he carries an arsenal of rush plans including cross chops, swipes, swims, and spin moves. Adding him alongside of the plethora of rushers the Lions already have in Aiden Hutchinson, Marcus Davenport, Josh Paschal, and James Houston will create a platoon of rushers that will constantly apply pressure to the pocket, even if it comes at the cost of upside. For the final pick of this Lions draft class, we're going with upside and outside linebacker Tupuola-Fetui from Washington. After notching 7 sacks in 3 games in a COVID-shortened 2020 season, he is heralded as a potential first-round pick. However, a torn Achilles among other injuries have derailed him, barring him from reaching those heights. He still has his athleticism as he drops into coverage quite frequently, which is difficult to do at 6'3", 244. The former Husky will likely be at the 5 or 9 tech and be a rotational passer for the time being, though with time I'm sure he can fully display the flashes we saw in 2020. To go over this mock draft, with our first round pick we selected center Zach Frazier from West Virginia to provide depth on the offensive line. In round 2, we grabbed wide receiver Keon Coleman from Florida State to fill out the X receiver role, and in the third round we took cornerback Khyree Jackson from Oregon. Moving on to day 3, we selected tight end AJ Barner from Michigan, and with a pair of 6th-round picks, we nabbed safety Malik Mustapha and defensive end Byrd. And to close it all out, we went with an upside pick and outside linebacker Tupuola-Fetui from Washington. Let me know what you guys thought of these picks and who you guys would have taken instead. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video and thanks for watching.